First of all, good evening all, and thank you for joining us today in the session. My name is Avi, and I'm part of ISB's A&P admissions team. I welcome you to the today's sessions on in the e-vehicle infrastructure, a use case of Tesla by Professor AJ Chauradia. Dr. AJ has been an assistant professor of business at Doane University, and he has been associated with the ISB for quite a few years. Now, before I introduce him further, there's a couple of points I just want to add. We will be having a 1 hour discussions, and out of that first 35 to 45 minutes, professor will be talking about his work about the infrastructure that he's been related to the infrastructure related to the e-vehicles. I would request you to please start typing your questions using the Q&A sessions and in the chat window. So that we can address all the questions at but towards the fag end of the sessions. Dr. AJ has completed his PhD in strategy and entrepreneurships from the University of Illinois. He also has been a part of ENY. He has got his visiting fellowships from the University of Melbourne as well. So previously he has been working with a family business as a financial analyst for a large conglomerate. So I welcome you all to the sessions, and I request Professor AJ to start the sessions. Professor, over to you.
All right, can you enable screen sharing, and I'll start doing that.
Sure, Professor.
Awesome. Okay, I got it. All right, and let's see if this works. All right, can everyone see my screen?
We can see your screen.
Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome to this masterclass. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Avibasu, for helping out. I have taught in the A&P program for many years. I was even at ISB for many years. Just the pandemic has changed things up a little bit, but I'm happy to be here and really would love to talk about what's happening with Tesla. So just to give a bit of a background, we know that innovation is crucial for success, but getting the right type of innovation matters. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at, let's say, sewer systems, right? Those are great, they're embedded, they're working, but telephone lines, right? Nowadays, we don't even use those, right? We're just based on satellite mobile phone systems. So any country that invested significantly in telephone lines and that infrastructure, in some ways, is kind of a loss of an investment, right? Railroads, well, railroads is very successful in India. It has been a devastation in the US. And so that, again, all that infrastructure has gone to waste. So ever since airplanes have come about. So what is the challenge with electric vehicles? Well, I mean, do we want to invest in these charging stations? How significant of investments are you making in electricity infrastructure? And my suggestion would be that, yeah, we need to make those investments. I think it's going in the right direction. I think if you, for example, right now, if you choose to make an investment in electricity, that seems quite wise given the trajectory of what's happening. And we'll continue talking about that throughout the session. Disruption of new business models. We know that has happened, right? So if you think about, let's say, Uber has disrupted the business model for taxis. It's actually taken out many of the incumbents in the market. And this is what Tesla is trying to do. Tesla hasn't done it yet. They haven't actually disrupted the market in a manner that we would expect something like Uber to do. Can they do it? Well, that's something to remain to be seen. So we'll hold off on that. Uber has been very disruptive. Tesla has been an innovator, and we'll look at that going forward. So if you look here at this figure, it shows that the degree of innovation you have, the higher that is, and the higher the frequency of innovation, the more of a competitive advantage you have. So what are the 3 key successes of innovation? And then we'll map these on to what Tesla has done. So if you look at the 3 key successes, first is to be an early mover, right? So you're kind of resolving these tech and market uncertainties, which is what's constraining other players to enter the market. So you're an early mover dealing with these. Second, you have successfully overthrown the incumbent or trying to overthrow them by being able to even enter that space. And third, you're managing the innovation cycle very well. So if you can do these three things very well, then you will likely be very successful in innovation. And Tesla has done most of these. And so let's take a look at each of these in a little bit more in depth. If you look at early mover advantages, right, this figure shows that there's tech evolution and market evolution. So what does that mean? Well, it's comfortable to enter, let's say, the vegetable space. If I want to start producing vegetables, I can have a farm, I can sell those in the market. But if I want to sell electrical vehicles, well, there's a lot of things that we don't know. We don't know what the technology is for those electrical vehicles. We don't know if there's demand for it. Will people even buy those vehicles? And so because of that, it's very challenging to get into this market. Tesla chose to enter this market. How did they enter it? Well, the market hasn't grown significantly, so it has slow growth, but they have revolutionized the technology. And if you see, so they're in that bottom left quadrant where they've been a technology lead. They're a strong and development team, research and development. They've done that a lot. They've created these factories, mostly autonomous, run by robots. So they have been a very strong innovator in a slow growth. And with the assumption that when the market picks up, they will be, their model will be scalable, and then they'll capture that market. We haven't gone there yet, but they have been the innovator in this. Just to be able to survive in this market and enter, one way to do it is with an early mover advantage. And if you look at cars and accelerating speed of tech change, it's getting faster how to build technologies. But cars, even though they're one of the earliest technologies back in the 1900s, there hasn't been a significant change in that technology until Tesla, right? So Tesla has come in and made this significant change and is revamping that market, apparently. And we know innovation leaders may be successful, may not. It remains to be seen. We know that Toyota, Ford, General Motors are entering now in this space. And so will they take the lead, or Tesla will take the lead? The second part of having a successful innovation has been what we call Judo Economics. So how do you enter markets to not trigger an incumbent response? What do I mean by that? Well, when Tesla said, we're going to enter the automobile market, there are significant players, Maruti Suzuki, there's Ford, there's General Motors. There are other companies, Mahindra, that would have come in and just destroyed them, right? Destroyed Tesla. So how did Tesla enter? Well, Tesla first was not, so these are three ways to enter. One is in the same market, you target a low price, but you're able to sustain that. So even if an incumbent chooses to lower the price, like for example, if we look at, let's say Maruti entered with an electric vehicle, or is an incumbent, and Tesla's enters with the electric vehicle. Between the two, most people would go and buy Maruti because that's a familiar brand, unless Tesla lowers the price. If Tesla lowers the price, Maruti can also lower the price and still capture the market. But if Tesla can sustain their vehicles, even with the lower price, they can make profits, then Maruti would be at a loss. So one is to lower the price and still stay in the market. The second, you target a very small market, and this is what Tesla has done, is they have targeted a very small market, and you target and then you price it lower. If Maruti would then want to compete, it's going to be very costly for them to enter a small market. Or you offer a higher price, and now you differentiate yourself. So what Tesla did is they entered at a very high price and targeted a very exclusive market. So none of the existing automobile players wanted to enter because they wouldn't want to risk their brand and cannibalization of their existing products and risk their brand diluting if they entered and it was not successful. So Tesla entered at a high price in a very small market. If you look at the innovation cycle, and I'm going to try to see if I can get my pointer going here. Here's the innovation cycle for firms. So If you look at companies, the more the companies, so let's put the laser pointer here. The more companies, as the number of companies increase, then you'll see that at some point, that's where the growth phase is. Then there'll be a shakeout of companies and the mature ones will remain. And so this is, for example, if you look at smartphones, you'll see smartphones in emerging economies has grown in 2020, whereas in developed economies, it's kind of, declining. But where is Tesla? Well, I would say, Tesla in this market is probably still over here, right? The market, there's been only one firm, largely one firm, Tesla, that has entered the market. So the market size is very small and sales haven't grown. Now, what happens with sales? Well, sales picks up. So this is the number of companies that are going up. What happens with sales? Well, sales doesn't map on here. Sales comes significantly later. So this is what we call the sales takeoff. This is known as the sales takeoff. And why is that the case? Well, what happens is at this phase, you have many competitors entering into this market, and then they start consolidating. When they start consolidating, the price of products goes down. When the price of products goes down, that's when consumers start buying it. And that's when sales takes off. So we are very early in this phase. Tesla's very early. And there's other things that happen around this time. One is you have a lot of innovation, product innovation. And that's where it's very high product innovation right here. Very high product innovation that eventually phases out. Followed by process innovation that again also phases out. So this is right now product innovation that's happening. And Tesla has done a lot of that. They have figured out how to have the battery in the car, how to design it, how to have that, where the stations are supposed to be for charging, how to manufacture with very few employees. They've done a lot of product innovation that have been successful. And so, that's what happens with most of this innovation, which is why they've been successful innovating. But as far as who succeeds in the market, that still hasn't happened yet. We still are waiting. And now we have players entering the market, these incumbents, but they haven't entered earlier. So we're still not sure. So the sales industry has not taken off yet. The next thing in innovation also is network effects. So when you look at, let's say, Uber, right? How does Uber work? Uber works because if there's more demand for use of that app, then they can have more drivers. If there are more drivers, they have more coverage. They have more coverage, they have more pickups, and that in turn then increases demand for their product. And it's the same thing with Tesla. With Tesla, if there's more demand for electrical vehicles, then they can have more stations devoted to, they'll have more stations devoted to charging. They can produce more cars that will lower the price, and then people will buy more. So that's sort of where the network effect, although the infrastructure has still been struggling because sales has not picked up, and that's one of the criticisms. But it's a short-term one, because once the demand goes up, then those will resolve itself. Finally, we haven't crossed the chasm yet. That's the key thing, is we're still, those who have Tesla vehicles, and if you have one, would love to have that in chat box if you are a purchaser. They're very few, those who like to be technology enthusiasts or very early adopters. We haven't gone even yet to the early majority. So we're still very much in this phase of the growth. And until we cross it, then we won't know. And notice that this is where the majority of the market lies, is on the right side. So let's talk a little bit about Tesla. Tesla, of course, has many founders. Of course, we know Elon Musk is the most popular and the CEO. They wanted to provide electric energy that is better and more sustainable to change the world. And they've done that mostly through all electric US-made vehicles, but they're going more into other scalable clean energy generation. So their scope is a lot broader than just electric vehicles. Now, this is what's interesting. Their market cap is at 860 billion, whereas General Motors is only 80 billion. But General Motors produces about 10 million vehicles per day. Do you know how much Tesla makes per day? Tesla makes about 2,000. And that's in this last year. Before that, it was significantly lower. So they're making only 2,000 vehicles per day at the moment. But the reason they have a large market cap is, can they create those autonomous factories very quickly around the world and scale to meet the demand? How did Tesla enter? If you go a little bit back, they've had a sequence of moves because it's very difficult to enter in this market. So first, they entered because they were able to produce a car that was $110,000, but it had faster acceleration than the Porsche and Ferrari. So that was one to be recognized. So a signal that they entered with this, this novelty, this innovation. Next, they created a car, the four-door sedan, at 73,000, very priced, very high, but again, very small market, produced in a factory that they bought from Toyota. So it's a secondhand factory that they bought, that they refurbished, and is made in the US. Now, most automobile vehicles are made outside of the US. And so that's another plus point, is that they are producing cars within the US. And so there's a lot of domestic success in that manner. They received the Motor Trend Car of the Year, and they received the highest score in Consumer Reports, 99, which has never happened. So when they're entering with these amazing high quality vehicles, high priced, and a new market. So incumbents don't want to compete there. They also had 2016, they unveiled the Model 3 compact sedan. That's more competitively priced at 35,000. And all of a sudden, when you price in that manner, that's when you're going to invoke competition. And they have started to invoke competition because they're now middling there. Although they've only delivered 100,000. And then they're also going into Solar City, and they've invested significantly in that as an alternative option. So, but this right here, this is now a threat to existing incumbents. Once you do something like this, up until now, they haven't been much of a threat. When they did that in 2016 as a starting price, that's when they became a threat, because the average vehicle would be around, I mean, still a little bit lower, but still it's a threat there. If you look at Tesla advantages they've had, well, they've had good management. Elon Musk, as much as he's eccentric, has been there, visible. It's great branding. Expert in battery electric vehicles, producing near celebrity owners. So that's, again, another appeal for those vehicles. And they have scale in cars and batteries. They're achieving scale. Weaknesses, they have higher prices. They are not necessarily maintaining profits. Elon Musk could be a problem. They focus on electric cars, rely on lithium batteries, which is problematic. And of course, there's been customer complaints. There have been issues with their driverless vehicles crashing. So they're again, all the uncertainty that we would expect with technology and markets, they are facing those. And then enter the competition. Toyota is building, and this just came out recently, are building a 1.3 billion US battery plant for electrical vehicles and their hybrids. So just to visualize the typical players in the market, you have, a Ford car, using, oil, gasoline. You go, you fill up your gas, and then you drive your vehicle. How easy would it be for a company like that in the oil industry to enter into electrical vehicle space? They have the infrastructure. All those gas stations can be fitted easily with, battery charging stations, right? That could be done there. And these plants that are producing these cars can then be producing electric cars. So you can do that. And of course, Ford exited India recently, but are investing more in R&D and software. So even though they're investing in the production of cars, they're investing more in R&D and software, which leads you to believe that they might be investing in the future more in electric vehicles. And GM and Ford are both building battery plants like Toyota. So Tesla can choose to maybe ally if they want, because they're only producing 2,000 cars. So that's one thing they could do, is ally with one of these partners. So you might see something like that happen. If they feel that there's a threat, they might choose to do that. There has been more domestic international competition. Why didn't these people enter sooner? Why didn't Maruti or Toyota or General Motors or Ford, why aren't they entering this space sooner? The simple reason is they don't want to cannibalize their market. They've already produced their existing cars. And so if they chose to enter the EV space, now they're competing within themselves. And they didn't want to do that. They want to reap the benefits of their existing vehicles. There's been a lack of clear standard, right? That we're not sure what's going to be successful. Lack of infrastructure supporting Tesla cars. That's another big issue, which again can be overcome really quickly. Battery production, we know lithium ion is lighter and have longer range than nickel metal hydride. However, there have been heat concerns. So, and of course, there's an economic slowdown compounded with that. But the lack of infrastructure and the batteries is the number one constraint. So let's look at some research findings on robots. And because Tesla is practically automated. So whereas, a regular car plant may employ thousands of workers, the Tesla plant will only employ, a handful because most of it is completely automated. And no robots increase productivity. Unfortunately, also decrease employment because you don't need as many workers. An example we can highlight would be, let's say, Adidas. Adidas was producing all their shoes in China and East Asia, and then they decided to shift back to Germany with the speed factor, completely automated. But after a couple of years, and that was just 2 years ago, they had to shift back their factory and everything back to China because they didn't know how to produce shoes anymore. They lost that knowledge in 20 years. So with many of these vehicle manufacturers trying to produce cars in the US, they're likely to copy the Tesla model. How do you do that? Well, very likely you just maybe hire some of their workers and bring them in, and that will help. 90% of robots we know is already used to produce in monomobiles. So global purchases of robots, most of it is used for automobiles. That's what it's mostly used for. And so it's not unusual for an automotive factory to then emerge with very few workers. Which automotive tech will win? Well, we're not sure. We're not still sure yet. Nissan chairman, he believes electric motors are the next tech paradigm, and he's offering a 2020, this Leaf car. But there are limitations. First of all, recharging stations, which we have to figure out if they're going to come, and this 250 mile range anxiety, right? So there's an issue of that as well. So what will it be? Will it be electric? Will it be hybrids? Will it be hydrogen fuel cells? Will it be solar? We're not sure. And so in summary, sales has not taken off yet, right? Will Tesla continue to dominate the market, or will these other entrants, Toyota, Ford, GM, come in and start taking market share? Will India invest in EV infrastructure? Is that worth investments? Will the automobile jobs be extinct? It's unclear which tech will be the lead, but which be the dominant design, but EV has a lead through Tesla. So this is all I have at the moment. I just would be welcome to hear any questions you may have, but this is where I'm at right now. Thank you.
Yeah, great, Professor Chauradia. Just for the audience, I am Colonel Rajiv Bhargav, and I am the Associate Director with the Punj Lloyd Institute of Infrastructure Management. And I am also part of the management team for the Advanced Management Program for I think, Professor, you have in a very brief time gave a perspective on Tesla, which is really unique. And you have come out with those aspects, which are very important aspects, like how how a disruptive product can enter the market by using what you said as the judo technique and other such things like that. No, actually, there are two things which immediately come to my mind. One is, of course, the aspect that, as you said, the EV infrastructure is a game changer, which will decide whether we will go ahead with electric vehicles or with hybrids or with some hydrogen vehicle tomorrow or something else. And in India, especially, that is a major issue to really see. I'll tell you, in Bangalore or in Bombay, these Ola scooters and everything has come out. You will be surprised that in these societies which are there, where there are a huge number of people living in a set of in the same compound in multi-storied buildings. The Resident Welfare Association is up in arms. They say, I mean, they don't provide. So typically vehicles are in the basement, right? And in these basements, there is no provision for providing a connection for recharging of vehicles. Now, even if there is a connection, right? The point is, who will it be built to? How will you? So who will it be? So if a user uses that for entire night, then who will it be built to? So there are some software solutions coming out, but as of now in India, sir, there is this major problem, and I don't know, but I feel one thing that the way things have started, even in India, they have started with the two-wheelers first, rather than straight away with cars, right? And what happens? It is, you start slow, and it's that incremental thing. So you start with these scooters. Once there is an idea that mindset is there, once the mindset is there, then people like say this Resident Welfare Association, when they find that there are 100 scooters floating around, they will obviously reach out to some software company to work out a solution as to that they can charge and also be built accordingly and so on. And once that happens, you can straight away go in for cars also. I mean, if you bring in big cars immediately, then there is a major issue, and that anxiety, because as it is, we Indians are very particular about that Maruti ad, kitna deti hai, what is the how much So basically, so now it would be an aspect of range. That is one aspect.
I think you bring a really good point. I mean, most of this infrastructure that's being developed is being developed in the US, where the voltage is a little bit different and the mileage is huge. Now, if you can bring that same technology to India, there'll be a lot more value, because I mean, you could go, hundreds of thousands of kilometers probably with just a single charge. And so that might be valuable, I think, right? I think that would be, just with that same technology going that distance, I think that would be really, especially with a small two-wheeler. I mean, that seems like on a single charge, but I don't know if we have the capacity for that infrastructure in India.
Correct. And sir, one more thing I would like to bring out, which I'm sure this is something which Tesla is doing and which quite a few people are not aware, and that is Tesla Energy. Now, this Tesla Energy is into megapack utility scale energy storage. Especially what they are doing, frankly, as far as electrical renewable energy is concerned in the world, if we do not have an arrangement to store that renewable energy, it may never succeed because of the vagaries of the weather, as also the solar energy is only available for 12 hours in a day, or maybe less, or something like that. So Tesla is coming up with they have come up with the world's largest lithium-ion battery in South Australia. And that is something like Tesla Power Pack, among other things. Would you be, would you like to comment on this and say something as to how infrastructure of renewable energy can be developed also, like with
so
Tesla?
I mean, it's clear from what I've studied so far is that Tesla is not banking on their electric vehicles. I think once the incumbents enter, which they're starting to enter, it's going to be quite challenging, because what we've noticed is whenever incumbents enter in the same space with an entrant, there's going to be a price war. That price war helps with consumers buying electric vehicles, but in terms of profitability, they get eroded. So that's why when you see Tesla investing in energy infrastructure, that's where they see more of their future instead of these cars, because they don't even have the distribution network that some of these incumbents have in terms of dealer relationships to get those cars spread out. So I really think that, I don't know if Tesla is going to be able to survive in that space, electric vehicles, but energy, yeah, that's a whole different ball game, and that's more to their original goal and mission was to invest in energy, not necessarily vehicles.
Yeah, you're right. So actually, I also would like to support your thought that even in India, I will talk about India right now. And in India, uh, the future of electric vehicles is all about that distance anxiety that you talked about. That is one, and the ability to charge at a at a mental peace, with mental peace, right? That is these are two things which are very important. And and one thing which I am really I would like to also get your views on this. See, in India there is a slew of SUVs and XUVs which are have been released recently, but actually none of them are, they may have some amount of hybrid stuff, but most of them are still based on petrol and diesel and so on. So any views how things can change in the immediate future and things like that?
Yeah, so it doesn't seem that that would be adopted, EVs would be adopted anytime soon in India. I mean, so if you look at existing automobile manufacturers, why haven't they entered? They don't want to enter because they're happy. They're happy with their current space, their current investments. Everything is well, and now they're profiting on that. And now, if they now have to invest in EVs, now they have to abandon all their research they've done with diesel cars. And so if you see these coming out, they're coming out because they know that the market might not be there again. So let's come
Yeah.
out with it now and get our use of our R&D investments in these large vehicles using diesel, because after that, you probably won't see them anymore.
Great, Professor. And just for the audience, I would like to say that Professor Chauradia is utilizing his research extensively to teach at Indian School of Business, especially the Advanced Management Program for infrastructure, and within that, some aspects of stakeholder management amongst others. He has been with us for quite some time now, and has made a huge difference as far as the learning or the value add that the students are getting while undergoing this program. Professor, may I request you to speak a little bit on how, and you will be teaching the next batch also, and maybe even in the current batch, you are covering certain aspects. So can you, for the benefit of the audience, can you briefly tell us what exactly are you doing?
So we have an exciting, a new simulation on Tesla that we're going to run in the classroom. That's going to be dominating that session that I teach in strategy and infrastructure. And the reason we do that is, see, Tesla is, strategy is very industry agnostic. Whatever the industry is, we take it as is. But we try to bring in those elements that matter. So for those students who are gonna be taking that next week, they'll realize that, okay, Tesla's in this market, now competitors are coming in. What do I price my product? How do I produce it? Do I market it? What do I invest in R&D? Do I need to take financing out? So all those are covered in this. Alongside, we have cases that we study, various infrastructure related industries. And then do our strategic analysis for each of those. But I really think the Tesla simulation is going to be exciting, that we're starting to try out and roll out this week. I think those students might benefit from this quite a bit.
Very much. And just for the audience sake, I'm saying that the current program is in progress, and Professor is going to teach here next week. And the next batch would be starting in April 2022. Meanwhile, I see there is a healthy number of questions which are awaiting a response. And I also see that Avi has, shown his video and his face to me, telling me that, come on, let us answer those questions. So Avi, thank you. Over to you, and you can start, following up on the questions. Thank you.
So shall I pick some of the questions, Avi Basu, because some of them are very technical.
Absolutely, Prof.
But some of these are, so let me just go through some of these questions. and
Great.
see which ones I can help in providing an answer. So, Dr. Bruce Phelps asks, can you mention some companies that have been disruptors but not innovators? So disruptors, we'd say, are those who have some architectural innovation in the product. So for example, with Tesla, it's still a car. They've just changed out the whole inside of it to make it, run with electric vehicles versus diesel. So that would be, and that itself is a disruptor more so than, some of these. I mean, so that's a disruptor. But I would say that all of them are innovators. So once you're, regardless of whether you're doing a small amount of, it's more about the degree of innovation, but all of them are innovators. I would find it very hard pressed to find a disruptor who's not been an innovator. Maruti Suzuki is not bullish on India's electric car race. What kind of strategy are they following? Yeah, they wouldn't. So they and other incumbents are not going to, because there's a very, if you look at the demand, right? 2,000 cars a day is all that Tesla's producing, whereas there are millions of other vehicles being produced. So why would we want to enter when, there's so much investment that goes into this market? It's significant innovations that have to be done. We have a stable system that's going. Let's try to reap as much as we can before you bring in something new that starts cannibalizing it. And if you bring in a new electric vehicle at a lower price, it's very likely that people are going to move towards that innovation and not go for the existing. And so now you've just lost all your market if you do introduce it. So I would say that the fact that they're waiting is quite understandable, just to work with what they have existing. What would be the best time to enter the EV charging infrastructure in a country like India? Should it be looking as a first move, or can it backfire due to high capital investment? Should we wait for EV vehicles to pick up? So this is a very good question, right? What comes first? We always know that, the EV vehicles are supported by this infrastructure. So when would you want to make investments? If you're waiting for sales to pick up, it's too late. By then, things are already established, it's going to be more competitive. The time to invest would probably, once you start seeing Indian automotive firms saying, we're going to build an EV factory, that's a signal that we need to invest in the infrastructure, very likely. So right now would be a great time to invest in EV charging infrastructure in the US, because all the companies are signaling that they're going to start producing e-vehicles. That too, it could change. It could change very quickly. As soon as you make that investment, we could find something else happen. Solar could pick up quickly, and now it becomes extinct, kind of like, let's say telephone lines. So that's why it's a risky innovation, but that's also why it's also profitable if you can do it. So, you kind of have to figure out high risk, high rewards is where that's going. When India can be ready for EV, and what factors affect readiness of India for EV? So I don't think, so one factor would be electricity. I think if we can get more stable electricity, that would be there. I don't know if there's any way that can be done remotely, but that's a key factor. And so that's where it worries me, because of, already we have a shortage in electricity, and now we're going to invest more in this EV infrastructure, which again uses electricity. Seems like, okay, so if you want to invest in electricity infrastructure, that's a great way to go, because that is something that is in dire need, which is what Tesla is doing in different ways. All right, Dr. Phelps asked another question. If you're advising Tesla on its judo strategy at the beginning, would you have advised a high price or a low price? I would have thought a low price would have made established companies more hesitant to challenge Tesla. Yeah, that's a great point, right? If they did low, that's what judo says, is you can go and target a low price in a target market. But established companies, I don't think, didn't even think that Tesla is going to make it. And though they allow them to enter, and even so, they haven't even competed. I wouldn't say, even though the market cap of Tesla is so high, because of their ability to replicate at scale, if that happens, established companies are still not as worried because if they were, they would have entered in much sooner, but they haven't. So I guess in some ways they're letting Tesla come in, test the market, deal with the technology uncertainty, deal with the market uncertainty, come up with these innovations, establishments, and then you can just imagine these other companies, incumbents coming in, hiring Tesla workers at higher salaries, and then replicating all that imitation technology, maybe licensing some of those patents. I'm not sure. I don't know if they're going to get expired soon, but that's where I think they're safer to enter, just because it takes long to enter this market. Let's see what else. So what would be the effect of ethanol and methanol electric vehicles? As Indian government is giving a huge push to alternative fuels, do you think the implementation of EV will be pushed back? Yeah, so I'm not, Colonel, do you know what is the government's stance right now on EVs? Because that'll provide some help into this, or on.
Yeah, sure. So as far as Indian government is concerned on EVs, they are very gung-ho about it. And the Prime Minister has said that within the next decade, or rather this decade, we want a maximum number of vehicles to be electric. And the government has been giving a lot of subsidy to the people who are purchasing EVs. And there has been not only just in purchasing, but also in the registration part of it and other such related aspects. So the future that way appears to be quite bright, and especially since Ola has started their vehicles, it will make a difference. In fact, I have an expert with me who can answer this question of yours.
Okay.
We have with us Ridal Demani. If you remember her, she is an alumni.
Yes.
Alumna of AMPI, and has been working in the policy of all these vehicles, etc. with CRISIL. So Ridal, you had something to say, but you can also add to your give answer to this point.
Sure, thank you, Professor AJ. It's really nice to hear you.
Nice to see you again.
And hello, Professor Colonel Rajiv. And hi, everyone. So I am actually a 2018-2019 pass out. And I just wanted to continue and maybe chip in into specifically this point about the government strategy. So as at CRISIL, we are actually working as consultants to several government authorities, and we are advising them on how EV infrastructure and public transport on an EV model can be rolled out. So my perspective from that experience is really that what the Indian government currently is doing is probably a very I would say a more appropriate approach. They are focusing on mass transit, and they are really focusing on e-buses and for city bus commute. And what they have done is, on the supply side, they've incentivized large players like Ashok Leyland, Tata, to manufacture these buses. And on the demand side, they are actually incentivizing through the FAME scheme a lot of city governments to actually get subsidies to buy these buses. So compared to the private sector e-vehicle take-up, I actually see a much more healthy sort of a take-up on the public bus side of e-vehicles in India. So the lesson to take away from here, what my company and all of us are actually deliberating is that if e-vehicle has to come on a mass scale for personal transport, then definitely this will have to be led by the government. And I think some policies and some sort of incentives and schemes need to be kind of proposed or rolled out on that front from the government. And if you're looking at mass charging infrastructure, then this also will have to be rolled out at a state level. And we may need to actually bring in the private sector participation to operate this just like any other public utility, just like maybe a water supply network or maybe a telecom network. And I feel this is something that would really work for the Indian scenario. That's just my 2 bits to this conversation. Yeah, thanks for hearing me out.
Oh, great. I think she has come up with the right perspective, sir.
Absolutely. No, that's absolutely correct. I mean, the fact that she's saying, I mean, the riskiness of entering into the EV market space and risk that it doesn't take off, now who's going to bear that cost? So if the government is saying, look, we'll subsidize it for you. So I guess the answer to that question would be, wait till the government subsidizes. If you were entering into the EV market, wait till the government says, you know what, we want to support you, and capture those subsidies immediately at that point in time, because there'll be a lot of competition. So preparing yourself for that would probably be wise, so you don't have to bear that risk. If you want to enter a little bit, just to get familiar with the technology, so that when those subsidies come in, you'll be the first one to get it, that could make sense. But I still think we're a ways from the private sector. The fact that the e-buses are there, I don't know if that would be charged at the same station. I think that'll be a different station altogether. That's a different market, so that wouldn't be the same thing with vehicle charging stations. So, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I would add one thing here, Professor. And you had mentioned crossing the chasm, right, for Tesla. Or I would compare it to achieving the escape velocity in terms of rockets and so on. Actually, so what I would like to say is that the Indian government, what they are doing, maybe it is the right way by giving that incentive for an infrastructure. Maybe we will achieve that level or that escape velocity, beyond which the private sector will start taking it on, and then there will be no need of the government to subsidize this. Quite possible, I suppose, if that can work.
I think that sounds about right. Dr. Vasista has a really nice view. Shall I read it? So sharing my view of the customer perspective, who looks for is, as rightly said by Colonel, renewable energy, converting battery electric to mechanical energy at the same time. We need the recharging of battery, either active or offline energy consumed. Battery should be rechargeable. I'm not sure this looping kind of architecture of energy cycle has been attempted. It can be attempted. Another point is the flexibility of replacing the batteries as and when required with multiple vendor open source use more than the body. The energy part of the story is more important to be looked at in the Indian market. I mean, when you look at this, we've talking about batteries and we're talking about infrastructure, but there's a whole, the automotive sector is huge, right? There's also used vehicles, very profitable used vehicle market. There's also insurance. There's also fixing repairs. So all that is, the potential for disrupting. And I don't know if the existing vehicles who are players in this can do the same for electric vehicles. So my guess is they probably can't. And so there's going to have to be a significant change in even the skill set developed to manage this type of work and repairs. So I have basic infrastructure. So Alok says I have basic infrastructure and running my e-rickshaw charging facility in my hometown. From last 3 years, it doesn't require a huge investment. Do we need to upgrade to the Ola and other Tata standards? What sort of innovation? So he actually has an e-rickshaw charging facility. That's amazing that he's been running. Alok, it's quite impressive. And it didn't require a huge investment. Could it be because of the amount of energy required is not as much? That could probably be the reason. That's a great, thanks for sharing that. That's fantastic. As expected, the time frame for battery price to fall is $70 per kilowatt hour. I think it's key for successive four-vehicle EV industry. Yes, if for this to work, the prices have to fall on all fronts. So, all right. Do we have any other questions?
Okay. Actually, Professor, one of the persons has put a question in the chat mode. So it is by Avinash from Alpha Level, the company, I believe. He believes he has come up with a very interesting point that he believes that hydrogen will play a major role for cars and trucks in developing countries, much more than EV, due to the number of vehicles, charging points, and reliable grid. The government is speeding up the process of laying gas pipelines could help in distribution of this hydrogen. And selling hydrogen to people also provides tax revenue to government in place of diesel and petrol. So any thoughts on this, on hydrogen?
Yeah, so this is where it's not clear what the government is doing, because if they're investing in, we don't know what's going to be dominant, right? And so if you're picking a particular role, now if the government is having in its hands as multiple areas, then even the market is sort of confused what direction that they want to go. So that just seems quite confusing with what, because at one point they're doing the e-buses, but then they're also investing in this. So it could be just the market is so big and we just need as much energy as we can. That's what it seems to be. But it's risky because EV infrastructure is very different. It's not the same as, just fueling your existing vehicles. So, I'm a bit confused by why the government is doing that, other than they see EV is not there yet. It might come in the next 10 years, 20 years. And so because of that, they're choosing to make those investments. There's a nice.
Okay, and one more question, Professor, is again, maybe Hidal can help in answering this also, and that is about what problems do you expect Tesla will have in entering the Indian market, especially considering the domestic norms?
Yeah, so Tesla is, so even as we've seen, right, many US automotive makers have left India, and India has a very good number of players who are capturing the Indian market. The Indian market is very different. I mean, the terrain is different compared to the US. So the US, you have very nice roads, but then you have to deal with temperature issues. I mean, 49 out of the 50 states it snows, right? In India, you have a mix. You have rugged terrain. You have people in the streets. So a Tesla vehicle might do well. It might have a bunch of sensors, but I think all those sensors would go off. The car would be standstill, right? I don't think you could have a driverless vehicle option. You'd have to have a driver in the Tesla vehicle, because I think all their sensors would say, this is too risky. We don't want to go anywhere. I think that was the Tesla vehicle was just stuck right in the middle as a driverless option. But I think Tesla has to revamp their product a little bit because they don't have many products that can cater to the India market. I mean, they need to do a lot more changes to be able to enter significantly into India. And I don't think they're even trying to play that game. So infrastructure, I think they'll be there. I don't think necessarily in vehicles.
Yeah. Either you have to add anything to this?
Yeah, just one thing. I think this, I'm talking more like a consumer now, but I think the unavailability of service centers and repair, access to repair, I think that is going to be a decision barrier for someone purchasing a Tesla vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Although, Professor, I think one disruption which has possibly started with Tesla has been their ability to update software through the cloud, amongst other things, and the edge computing, as we say. So, you have any thoughts on that? The edge computing as well as the cloud, which is there.
So that's now an advantage in India, is because to get these vehicle repairs in or software updates, if they can all be done remotely, then that again saves the consumer a lot of energy going to go and get things fixed. And if their vehicle is so strong, so it's a very durable product. In India, we know that there are some constraints, but when we have with cloud computing, and you have laptops which don't have to have any more data, very affordable, cost effective, everything is on the cloud. I think that's also an opportunity, but I don't know. I mean, electric vehicles is still a way to go, I think, down the road. I think once you see, so if the industry incumbents are starting to enter in India, that's when I think, and they should be entering, that's when you'll see this takeoff go. So Tesla's done, it's unfortunate, but Tesla's done all the hard work. And now all the other car manufacturers can just replicate that. And it's unfortunate, but that's where I see things are going. So let's wait and see when Maruti chooses to enter EV significantly. That'll be a huge signal of growth. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing which has been one of our attendees, Nidhi, has mentioned a very pertinent point, Professor, and that is how the manufacturing business of Tesla are going to be affected because the diesel and petrol prices are going through the roof, especially. So a better alternative. Any thoughts on that?
So so this is where if prices are going through the roof, then we start looking for alternatives. We start driving vehicles less. We try using alternative modes of transportation. But if prices are going off the roof, and we don't know what is driving that, is it the tax cut that the government is implementing because they could reduce the tax and then the prices could go down, or is it the general shortage of oil, which likely eventually we know that there's a shortage. So when that happens, then it becomes more enticing to go more into electric vehicles because now you find out that that's a more viable substitute. And if these vehicles, if they last longer, right, if the software is there, and rather than 10 years are going for 20 years, and there could be other cosmetic improvements done outside, we're looking at a very different market altogether, right? I mean, you would, in some ways, you wouldn't even go in to buy a new car. You just modify the outside body. You take your existing car, and that's something we haven't done because it's very costly. But with Tesla, I think they can do that. With that innovation, it's possible. So we could be looking at, it's kind of like you go in and you're trying to change your clothes. Now, if outside your car, if it's all like a digital image, right? So then you can just press a button, and today you have a blue car, tomorrow you have a red car, tomorrow you have I mean, it's unfathomable the amount of changes that can happen with in the future, especially if oil prices are going up, then that's going to motivate more people to find these alternative sources.
Actually, it is not just about oil prices going up, Professor. If you see, because of the COVID, the global supply chains have been disrupted in a very, very significant manner. And as we are talking, a number of ports globally, there is a jam as far as oil containers and those others such carriers are concerned.
Tell me about
it. So, and you must have read about UK as to how all the petrol pumps dried up because there was no one to drive the trucks which will ferry the fuel for storage amongst these. So one thing which may other than just the cleanliness of the EVs, there may also be that convenience which is there, that it would be electricity, so there is no running around for fuel. Frankly, in case once you have achieved that escape velocity, as we say, or maybe cross the chasm, as one may say, right? So that may be something which is very.
That's a
good
point.
I think otherwise, Avi, are there any more questions? And we are also inching towards 8 o'clock.
Yeah, so I think we can conclude the session, Colonel Raju.
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, thank you, Ridal, as an alumni, and also bringing out such very valid points.
Absolutely.
And we do hope that you continue doing well, and all the best to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to me. Yeah, thanks, Professor AJ. Lovely seeing you again.
No, it was nice to have a student come and give their views. I mean, it's so valuable because you're in this space, and so you have some insights and knowledge. So really appreciate you coming in and sharing your views. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And of course, Professor AJ, you are, as you are always, coming up with some insightful inputs which change the way people think.
That's my job, is just to broaden your horizons.
Exactly. And we do hope that you will continue to broaden the horizon of people, especially for the advanced management program for infrastructure.
I'm excited about that Tesla simulation. I'm really excited. I think so. I've completely, just so you know, Colonel, I've revamped the entire course around it because I think that's going to be much more hands-on, and students will really like that component of, okay, how do you make these decisions? So I'm really excited to see how it runs in the classroom. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. And I'm confident that the people who are listening in right now out here, they also would be eager to have their horizons taken to the next level. By the way, your research and your outputs, they make a huge difference. So just to remind everyone that the next program starts in April 2022, and the first round for admission is ending on 20th November. So I think Abhi Basu has already shared the link for reaching out online. So please do reach out and change your life. I will put it this way: change your careers, change your way of thinking, and change your life by doing this program. And thank you, Professor AJ, for your time. And we really look forward to your sessions in the 4th residency, which is coming up. And wish you all the best. And thank you again for finding the time. Thank you, Avi. I think this has been a very good session. And with all, it's a win-win situation for all. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. I'm sorry for those I
Bye.
didn't get to answer your questions, but thank you so much.